Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guest Nidhi Pandya, who's here to share with us Your Body Already Knows, Intuitive Ayurveda, 21 days to reset your gut, sleep, mood, and health. So what if the key to healing your body isn't outside of you, but already within? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Nidhi Pandya is a National Ayurvedic Medical Association certified Ayurvedic doctor known for her accessible approach. She's a faculty member of the well-known Shakti School of Ayurveda and provides online courses on Ayurvedic nutrition at One Commune. She has written articles for Ayurveda and Health Tourism magazine and Mind, Body, and Green, has given a TED Talk, and speaks at major corporations such as Google. She's been featured in Vogue, Allure, and Harper's Bazaar, as well as English-language India newspapers, Times of India. So welcome to the show, Nidhi Pandya.
Thank you so much for having me, Marianne. I'm excited here to talk to you.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this new book. What inspired you to write this?
So, Marianne, I live in New York City and I am an Ayurvedic doctor. So I have people every time I go out anywhere, meet any friends, forget it when I'm working, but just in general, I'm always being asked health questions. But it's not only limited to people's symptoms, it's more so that people are constantly asking me, hey, I've heard about this new peptide. Should I be taking this? Or should I be, putting spirulina in my smoothie? But basically, to sum it up, we have so much information out there. We have so many experts. And I see all the people that I work with and otherwise are more confused than ever before. And this is fundamentally against our human nature, or it's fundamentally against the nature of any species, because the truth is, if we look around us, and species that we deem less intelligent know how to live better than us. For example, I always joke that deer wakes up in the morning, not questioning whether he needs to graze or not, but it's like clockwork. He goes to the exact place to graze and he does it happily. And tigers don't get carried away waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning to meditate. And nursing mammals reject foods that they would eat otherwise. I personally have seen bears in Alaska eat big cabbage heads before they go to hibernate so that once they're back from hibernation, they can have a bowel movement. What I'm trying to say is that if every other species on the planet has this great amount of intelligence of how to live and how to eat, how as human beings did we lose it? And then I realized that with all of this excessive information, we've lost our wisdom. And in the modality that I practice, Ayurveda, the first cause of disease is loss of wisdom. Because when we lose our wisdom, we become vulnerable to any outside information. When we lose our wisdom, we start acting out of a place which lacks equilibrium. So I decided to write this book to offer people a framework to start coming back to that deep wisdom that each and every species on the planet carries and knows how to live well emotionally as well as physically.
What a profound piece. And you're right. I mean, every time we open up Instagram or YouTube, there's another expert with another tip. And it gets so confusing to try to navigate through all that. Coming back to our inner wisdom, such a big deal. And you actually coined the term the inner climate. And I'd like for you to share what that is.
Yeah, Marianne. So, we don't know what balance is. Most people know balance only when they're feeling the lack of balance, right? When they're feeling a symptom. But how do we define equilibrium beyond a physical exam, So I see people, they go to the doctor, they look at their blood work, and that's what they use to tell them if they're doing well or not. And that's not how it should be. The truth is, homeostasis is a climate inside our body that we can actually feel. And when that climate shifts, everything, how our body functions, our circulation, our elimination, our thermoregulation, all of it starts shifting. And eventually it leads to imbalance, and that imbalance leads to disease. So once we identify what that climate is and we keep bringing our body back to that optimum inner climate, we then don't need to get those external diagnostics right away. Then we understand right at the root of the imbalance when we're going out of balance. So the idea is, what is that ideal inner climate? And anybody who's listening to this, I invite you to think about that. If you had a climate inside, what would it be like? So the first thing that I ask people to do is take their palm, and Marianne, you can do this as well. Take your palm, cup it around your mouth, and if you exhale into it a few times, really feeling what your breath feels like, what does it feel like to you, Marianne?
Well, it's warm and moist.
Exactly. It's warm and it's moist. Our blood is warm and moist. Our reproductive fluids are warm and moist. Our body being warm blooded, as we are warm blooded mammals, and our body is primarily liquid, we are warm and moist beings. In fact, the probiotic environment, which has now become such a big deal, right? They're discovering that this microbiome that really supports the health of every single system in our body, from digestion to reproduction to your nervous system to your immune regulation to your brain health, is controlled by microbiome. And this microbiome used to be called flora and fauna earlier. Where does flora and fauna exist? Outside. In Florida in March, warm and moist. Warm and moist is where life thrives. Warm and moist is where the balance of the sun meets the balance of the moon. Warm and moist is the only reason why life exists on our planet. We all know that life exists on our planet because the climate is right here and nowhere else. And that climate outside as well as within is warm and moist. We like warm people, right? Nobody likes hot tempered, really cold people. In fact, emotions, right? Like anger is too hot, stress is hot and dry, anxiety is too dry. But love, gratitude, compassion are all super warm and moist. So once we start understanding our symptoms and realize, oh, inflammation is nothing but global warming inside my body. It's hot, I have this hot rash, I feel acidity. I'm going out of balance. Or, hey, look, I feel stagnant. I feel stuck, not only in my mind, but also in my body. That's not warm and moist. It's not flowing. It's dense. It's like depression. It's like withdrawal. So once we learn to identify this warm and moist place, and then I teach people, how do you systematically bring in this warm and moist to your foods, to your exercise, to your relationships, to your moods, to your sleep, to every single aspect of your life, so you can continue to stay in health and give your microbiome an environment so that they can thrive, and in return, you can thrive too.
Does our circadian rhythms play any part of this?
Absolutely, right? So when you know, we are such rhythmic beings. In fact, everything that is living has a rhythm. Your cells vibrate. The day and night is a rhythm. The revolution around the sun with the seasons is a rhythm. And then micro rhythms as well, right? Our menstrual cycle is a rhythm. Our phases from childhood to youth to old age, that's also another rhythm, a pattern of its own. So the entire universe is designed in patterns. And we know intuitively, right? If you saw that it started snowing in the summer, you would know that, oh my God, something is really wrong. Something is really scary. I don't know what, but something is happening on my planet. Similarly, our circadian rhythms, right? As diurnal mammals, our rhythms, internal rhythms, are very connected to the rhythms of the sun and the moon. We were not given nighttime vision like tigers have. And the simple reason is because our body produces certain neurotransmitters and it takes cues from the sun to do so. And the neurotransmitters help a certain function or not. So when you wake up, when you sleep, when you exercise, when you eat, when you have an argument, even, all of that is highly dependent. I mean, if you want to do it right, if you want to create efficiencies and optimize the functioning of your body, then you really want to lean in to those rhythms that your body is already carrying and not do the otherwise. For example, if you sleep late, several nights in a row, it's severely disrupting your body's own seasons, your body's own rhythms. So the circadian rhythm, living accordingly to the circadian rhythm, does help you to continue to stay in warm and moist, right? It's just that when our planet has a climate that is conducive to life, right? 4.5 billion years, life has thrived on this planet because the climate was right. The sun was doing its bit, the moon was doing its bit. Before we had electricity in the early 1900s, we were living according to these circadian rhythms, and our planet was a perfectly warm and moist place. And now we have global warming because we've messed up. Inflammation, similarly, is one of the largest causes of disease and death today. And that's nothing different. We have become so solar on our planet and solar inside. Excessive stress, excessive work, excessive hot foods, dried foods, caffeine, alcohol. So it's all the same how you live, how you eat, and how you tune yourself to the larger rhythms outside of us.
I know in your book you share about how you have three core principles that guide your Vedic practice. Can you walk us through those? I know we've covered two, but just how they're interconnected.
Yeah. So the first one, like we said, is, that there's an inner climate, and our job is to keep coming back to that inner climate. And then it takes care, just how the planet survived for 4.5 billion years. It thrived. And from single cell species, we evolved into full blown mammals. As long as we take care of our inner climate, our life will continue to thrive, right? According to its age. That's the first principle. The second principle is the circadian rhythms that we are diurnal mammals and we live according to the cycles of the sun. And to optimize our health, we want to really follow those six patterns or six rhythms throughout the day. And I, of course, explain those six rhythms in detail in my book. And the third principle is that no matter what you do, what is inevitable on this planet is the building, the transformation, and the decline. You will see these three cycles everywhere. A fruit, for example, will build, will grow in size, right? Then it will ripen. And if it's not consumed, it will decay and it will decline. When you look at spring, everything is building. Summer, everything is transforming. Autumn and winter, everything starts to decay. As human beings, our childhood is our building period. Our youth is our transformation period. And then as we age, we enter into our decay and decline, the driest period of our life. And our climate significantly shifts in each one of these periods. And yet, our job is to stay as warm and moist as possible. But it's important to understand this principle because it teaches you about the transience of life. It teaches you that when you lose those warm, juicy, moist years of your life, it is natural for life to start depleting and creating room for new life. This principle especially also holds true for relationships, for your work we do, when you because it's in those areas, you don't have to go into decay or decline. As long as you keep building, you keep transforming. So if you're running an organization, you want to keep building so you can keep transforming into new levels. When you have a relationship, and it often goes into decline because you've lost those early building years, those early building moments and memories. So you want to kind of start going back to them. So it's these three principles, right? And then I teach people how to bring them to every single area of your life, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual.
Your book touches on so much that I felt was so profound and important. And one is kind of a topic we've talked about a little bit, just how much information is out there. So when it comes to our gut and our diet, what should we be doing?
Honestly, I'll tell you there's few things, right? So anybody who's listening to this, I don't want to change up your entire world today. But even just rearranging a few things is going to make a big shift in how you feel. And the first shift I'll say is you want to eat a heavier lunch, but a lighter dinner. I want you to remember that your ancestors and my ancestors, before we invented electricity, did not eat big dinners because our digestive system and juices shut down during those hours. Our body's insulin resistance increases, and our gastrin, which is our digestive juice, really shuts off. So, in a sense, all of us are almost mildly pre-diabetic during that time. And to eat food in the evening, big meals, is very new, and it's really what leads to chronic disease, poor sleep, and then a bunch of other imbalances. So, the one thing you want to do is eat a heavier lunch and a lighter dinner. If you're asking about breakfast, then breakfast should also be not the heaviest meal because your body is just firing up in the morning. Just how birds are barely starting their activity in the morning and flowers that kind of shut down at night are just gradually opening up, our body and our digestive system is gradually opening up from the sluggishness at night. So eat a warm breakfast in the morning, warm, always warm, nothing cold, no smoothies, no fruit first thing in the morning. But if you can have a warm porridge, a warm oatmeal, a warm cup of milk, work. A warm congee, amazing. Light up your fire right there in the early morning, right after you exercise. Eat a big, nice, heavy lunch and eat a small supper as dinner. And then you start winding down and try and get as many hours of sleep between 10 and 2. So the first principle is heavy lunch, light dinner. And the second thing, if you still want to add one more thing, I'd say, is try to eat as many cooked warm foods as possible. You bring in, cooking adds the warmth and moisture both. And a lot of cultures used either one of these three processes to bring in warm and moist. One was cooking. Second was using good fats and spices. Again, the good fats was the moisture, and the spices are, and the spices kind of keep things warm. Even on salads, if you look at cultures, the salads, they had olive oil, they had sumac, or they had vinegar, which is very warming to begin with because it's fermented. And the third thing that cultures did is they slightly fermented their foods to bring in warm and moist. If you've ever fermented anything, if anybody who's listening to this, if you fermented anything, it is a warm and moist process. You need warmth to be able to create fermentation, but it's also an aerobic process and it leaves a little water droplets on the pot that you're actually fermenting things in. So it's a warm and moist process. All our ancestors everywhere in the world used one of these three methods to bring in warm and moist. The easiest, if you ask me, is to cook your foods, add some good fats, add some good spices. Spicy is not spices. Spices means anything you'll see in your spice aisle in the grocery store, but it's not going to burn or feel very sharp on your tongue. For example, cumin, coriander seeds, bay leaves, cinnamon stick, all of those are great spices. So I'd say these are some great ideas. And even if you just did this, just this much, it is my promise that within 3 weeks, you will notice better sleep, better digestion, and daily bowel movements.
With following the principles in your book, how can readers begin to trust their own body's signals and develop that inner intuition?
Yeah, so basically, you want to start bringing this framework. And the more I teach people systematically, Marianne, how do you use this framework to make? So when you see a food, right? And you see a food and you see this cold smoothie, and you're like, oh my God, I really want a smoothie. What time can I drink it? You don't want to drink it first thing in the morning because your body is already soggy. And I explain that in the book. So you say, look, I really want to drink it. I'm going to drink it when the day is hot and my body is hot. So maybe around 3 o'clock, maybe around 4 o'clock, before it starts to wind down and become windy for the evening. So, you want to start judging your life on the parameters of what keeps it warm and moist. For example, you're going to drink coffee. And we all know that coffee is dehydrating. What is the meaning of dehydrating? Literally, if you break it down, it's hot and dry. So if coffee is hot and dry, how about I add a little bit of milk to my coffee to make it a little bit more moist and, a little less drying and a little less heating to my system? Or how about I have bullet coffee or a cappuccino instead of a black coffee? So I basically give this framework, and then you can start applying this framework by understanding your own body as well as understanding the world outside of you. And as people start doing that, this is what my clients and readers tell me, is that they start developing this vision for their own North Star. And they don't give into all that excessive information. They already know what information to filter out. If it does not pass the litmus test of, does this work with my circadian rhythm? Does this keep me warm and moist? If it does not, out. There you go. It's not a part of my health regime. And that's how you start coming back to your wisdom. I also tell people one of the biggest ways to learn is to be in awe. If you just look outside and you're in awe and you notice how life thrives in warm and moist, you notice the circadian rhythms of the day. You wake up to see the sunrise. You notice the gentle wind in the afternoon, the high heat when it's midday. And when you notice all of that, your body starts to learn. Your cellular intelligence awakens, and then not so much of all of this feels like a task or a prescription. It is your body's natural way of living. And that is one of the most beautiful things that happens when you start living like this, is that none of the changes you make are forced, they're effortless. I want to tell everybody that, listen, health is not supposed to be difficult. We've started to believe, because of all the marketing messages we hear, that unless it's taking a lot of effort, it's not going to create health. And that's not true. Look at animals out there. They don't have to fight to wake up at a time that they need to wake up. Their bodies are just attuned to it. If we eat at the right time and when we live according to the circadian rhythms, your body will support itself. And not only will it support itself, it will upgrade its own detox mechanism. So, all the pollution that we're living in and the toxicity that we're living in, we want our bodies and our livers to be able to detox all of that naturally and by itself. And that's only possible when you've created this optimized efficiency by following this framework.
Do you have a client story you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to talk about one of my clients. I'm not going to give her name, of course. And she is a mother of four, very conscientious. I live in New York. She lives in Connecticut. And she has been on this journey for the last 10 years. Taken yoga teachers training, been on Ayurveda, went to India to do what we call a Panchakarma cleanse, which is a hardcore cleanse. She's worked with functional doctors and she's made a lot of changes to her life. And when she came to me, she had this long list of supplements that she was taking. She had a long list of herbs that she was taking. And she was looking at her entire day in a very sincere but an extremely fragmented manner. And what had happened, one of the reasons why she approached me, she had enough doctors, she had a whole board of her advisors. But one of the reasons why she approached me, because she said, listen, I have high anxiety and stress, and I can't sleep really well. So she said, Are you able to help me?" When I looked at what her so called health regime was called, like the whole regimen was causing her, I said, this is what is causing the anxiety. You're so far away from your own wisdom. You're looking at every one of these little prescriptions and working so hard along with your four children to make it all happen. I said, it's not meant to be this difficult. And then we did a little bit of, I always do some inner child work. We create a toolkit of coping mechanisms because when you're making change, initially things can feel intense. And she really understood these three principles. And then she actually did a program with me for 21 days. Now, I'll be honest, she was like, okay, fine, I'm just going to give this a try with sincerity because I do everything with sincerity. But like, this is really not, this is just it doesn't feel like it's going to do much. She was very sincere. She continued to get fascinated. And as we reached the 21 days, and when we were by the end of this, she was like, all my problems are solved. Like there was a call where she was like, I just feel like all my problems are solved. I feel so in flow. I feel so happy. And she had this gastrointestinal reflux, acid reflux. And she says, I don't feel my acid reflux anymore. My hair is better. My skin is better. My sleep is better. And I'm so much happier. Now it's been about 6 months since she last worked with me. And we have check-in calls. And she's thriving more than ever before. Most of her supplements, most of the other things that she was doing, it has gone, it's all gone to the side. None of it is being done. She's kept a very bare minimum from her past life. And she was like, this is how we're all meant to live, love, and thrive. And she's one story, but I can think of so many such stories because really living well should not be so difficult. It is not meant to be so difficult. Also, we've become obsessed with fighting the the minutest battles of like minutes, using a magnifying glass on ingredients, but then staying up for 3 hours to watch Netflix. So I see people who are obsessed about like every single ingredient in their house, but they're eating stale food or they're staying up so late or they're drinking excessively on the weekend. And I bring them back to a path of moderation and only fighting their biggest battles, to be okay with anything that's creating too much effort or too much stress. And often we find much better results in this way of living.
Well, what an inspiration you are. And I just love your book. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you, purchase the book, and learn more about your book and be part of your community?
Thank you so much for asking, Marianne. So you can buy my book on Amazon, on Barnes and Nobles. A lot of stores carry the book. So any of those places, and the book is called Your Body Already Knows. And you can find me and my work on my website, nidhi.me, nidhi.me, like me. And if you want daily little doses and snippets of how do you start understanding your body better, I have an Instagram channel that is my underscore Ayurvedic underscore life.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Thank you, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Nidhi. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Your Body Already Knows. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.